Let's talk with Connor O'Gara, who I know is a college baseball fan too. Connor, I haven't paid attention to what's been going on in college football this week, and I've had my head in the sand, and the sand is college baseball. But this is a spectacular ballpark, my man. And if you're a baseball fan overall, this is definitely a place to get a look.
I am. I'm a diehard Chicago Cubs fan. It's funny that you mentioned Rosenblatt because I spent 2.5 years out in central Nebraska, and I wasn't able to see Rosenblatt while I was there because they got the new ballpark. They got TD Ameritrade there. But it's incredible in Omaha. Like what to think about what it was and what it's turned into, because I've been to where Rosenblatt used to be, and it's actually the parking lot where they have the Omaha Zoo. Shout out to Omaha Zoo. I'm sure there are a lot of references to that on today's show, but it's unbelievable. And people in Nebraska there are obsessed with it. I mean, I've been to the College World Series out there. I was there when Indiana was there with Kyle Schwarber back in the day. But yeah, in terms of venues, it's totally different. And when you take in a game at a place like that, I can't even imagine what Rosenblatt was like, because it doesn't feel like the space available doesn't feel nearly like what the new stadium is, because the new stadium feels so professional and probably very similar to your surroundings right now.
Oh yeah, it's a major league ballpark with 25,000 seats, and you mentioned that Omaha Zoo, man. I've been there. That's one of the best zoos in the entire world. Maybe the only thing we've got close to that right here inside this ballpark is the Mississippi State fan base sitting over third base. But I digress. So I saw you wrote a column about where SEC quarterbacks should be drafted or taken in by the NFL, and I was really interested at how you say Mac Jones would fit really well with the Steelers. I've been thinking, the Steelers have a big quarterback with a big arm who used to be able to move a little bit in Roethlisberger. That's Feleipe Franks. And it's not like Franks is a surefire NFL star or even a starter or anything, but there's something about Feleipe that makes me think he's going to get a chance. He might do something with it. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Big Ben.
Yeah, I don't see a team like the Steelers going after somebody like Feleipe to be their Roethlisberger replacement, which I think in a year like this, they absolutely need to address. I have Feleipe going to Philadelphia and reuniting with his former offensive coordinator, quarterback coach Brian Johnson, who actually just left Florida and Dan Mullen's staff after spending 5 of the last 6 years there to go take this job as the Eagles quarterbacks coach, which is an interesting, kind of bizarre head-scratcher in itself. But I think that would make a ton of sense. I mean, if you recall, before the Florida game, Brian Johnson came out and said, Feleipe is like family to me. I mean, those two kept in touch even after Feleipe got to Arkansas. And, I think back to my editor, Chris Wright, who's been talking about this for years with Feleipe, that someone's going to take a chance on the arm. Someone's going to take a chance on that sort of potential, because, you know what, this is what you have to do when you're in the NFL. And you could hope that someone like Feleipe would be able to develop some of those instincts, some of those skills later on. But he's going to be worth taking a chance on. I think he'll get drafted. I think everything that you've heard out of him from Arkansas suggests that'll be the case. I had a conversation with Sam Pittman a few days ago in which, we talked about Feleipe's development and how, he thought he had an idea of who Feleipe was based on those cocktail party matchups. And that was just totally different after he got to Arkansas. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he's dissected during the pre-draft process and if he's going to have interest. But I'd love to see him end up with the Eagles, get to work with Brian Johnson, get to back up Jalen Hurts. The SEC connections are there. I think it's just kind of a matter of time before he gets his shot at the next level.
Connor O'Gara joining us here on Halftime. Connor, before I want to move on with some Razorback stuff in a second, but I'm carrying on with this article that you wrote on Saturday Down South. I don't know if we've brought it up on the show before, but I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I noticed that you said the ideal spot for Kellen Mond is the Dallas Cowboys. Should I be excited about Kellen Mond going to the Cowboys, or should I try to convince me that this is a good move for Kellen Mond?
I mean, Arkansas fans should know a thing or two about Kellen Mond at
AT&T
Stadium. He's fared pretty well. And, besides the local thing, I think Kellen Mond is probably going to be a mid to late round guy, if I had to guess. Looks really good at the Senior Bowl. His Senior Bowl MVP is coming off a year in which you finally saw what he could do when he actually has some time and he gets that protection. And that's what Dallas has really kind of built that team around, obviously, is they've invested heavily in the running back, offensive line. And, the Dak situation moving forward, I mean, you don't necessarily know for sure what Dak is going to be, but I would assume that Dak is still going to be in Dallas come 2021, at the start of the season here. And if they do pay him, I just think that Kellen Mond would learn a lot working under Dak, working someone who was a mid-round draft pick as well, working in an offense that allows him to be able to show that mobility as well. I just think that would be an ideal situation because nobody's drafting Kellen Mond to be their starting quarterback in the very near future, but could he get into a situation like that where you look at, the development that Dak had in the SEC where he had so many snaps against SEC competition that I think we kind of took that for granted come draft time and all the situations that he was in, that Kellen Mond could be in a similar spot. I'm not saying Kellen Mond is going to be Dak Prescott 2.0, not saying that at all. But just in terms of where I'd like to see guys end up, I think that would make a lot of sense. And if you're a mid-round quarterback getting drafted, you could probably say the same about the first-round guys too, but so much of that really depends on your system. It depends on who you're working, the type of quarterback that's mentoring you and all that stuff. So I would like to see Kellen Mond end up in Dallas, though, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to replace Dak Prescott anytime soon.
Fair enough for me. I also enjoyed your piece you wrote earlier this morning talking about the coaching carousel and maybe 5 SEC assistants that could become FBS head coaches this year. And you talked about Jeff Leby over to Ole Miss. You had Derek Mason, Mickey Joseph at LSU. You didn't have Barry Odom listed as almost like coming a head coach next year, but maybe further down the road. What is it about Barry Odom sticking around at Arkansas that kind of gives you that inkling rather than one more year at Arkansas before moving on to greener pastures?
So the conversation I referenced with Sam Pittman, which will come out on Saturday Down South podcast this week, we talked about that and about Barry Odom and keeping him and about how Arkansas fans, as the season progressed, they were worried about that. Is Barry Odom going to get poached by one of these bigger programs? And instead, you're looking at a guy who's gotten 2 different raises after being there for 1 year. And he said, Sam Pittman said Barry Odom had better offers. Like he could have gone and offers that were more lucrative. And instead now he gets that bump in pay up to $1.75 million, which is a number that only 6 coordinators in America were making more than last year. And he's really well respected there. So I think Barry Odom actually could stay at Arkansas for multiple years. And I know that that's kind of a surprising thing, but I look at what type of situation would he leave for, right? If he's going to become a group of 5 head coach, yeah, that's a possibility. But with what he's being paid right now, that money is super comparable. And I'm not sure what exactly that market is. The group of 5 head coaching route is often very much a grind. And if you're Barry Odom and if you're holding out hope that you can maybe become a Power 5 head coach again, then you can do that going from a coordinator to a head coaching position. So I think that if Barry Odom didn't leave after this year for one of those bigger, coordinator jobs, I think that bodes really well for Arkansas moving forward and its ability to retain him and how valued he is by that staff. And I think that he's been wanting to see that, and he got that sort of validation this offseason. He's so respected, obviously, within that program. So I think he could turn into like what Mike Elko was at Texas A&M, where that was a guy a couple years ago where it seemed inevitable, like he was leaving, and the Texas A&M defensive coordinator is instead going into year 4 there, and he's paid really well to be that guy. But I think Barry Odom is liking his surroundings, and he's liking his ability to just kind of hone in on the defense and focus on that side of the ball.
But play off this idea for a second. We've seen this done before, though I can't recall a time when it actually went through. You saw it with Muschamp in Texas with Mac Brown before he took off to Florida. Do you think there's a scenario maybe down the road where, say, Sam Pittman's at Arkansas for conversation, say 4 more years, and Barry Odom is the next in line sitting head coach? Do you buy into that scenario at all, or am I reaching too far with that?
I think Sam Pittman's got more endurance than that.
No, I completely agree, but do you think that could be a scenario moving forward?
I mean, yeah, it depends on what he would want to, it really depends, I think, on what stage of life Sam Pittman would be at, and if that situation were to present itself. And yeah, I mean, look around the nature of college football right now. I mean, talk about in-house promotion. Dabo Swinney, in-house promotion at Clemson. Ryan Day, in-house promotion at Ohio State. Lincoln Riley, in-house promotion at Oklahoma. You could even go back to Jimbo Fisher at Florida State, where he was sort of groomed as the coach in waiting. Now, it doesn't work out well necessarily in every single spot, but you could even, look at Coach O. Guy won a national championship in 2019. Considered an in-house promotion as well. These paths are maybe not what we would think of 10 years ago, where 10 years ago I think you'd look at that and say, you want to go in-house to be able to promote? to promote a coordinator into that role. I don't think that works long term. But at the way that things have kind of shaken out in the last couple of years in college football, I don't think that would hold back Barry Odom from having success if that situation were to present itself.
Connor, I'm pretty sure I heard you say that you had a conversation with Sam Pittman that's going to be featured on your podcast this weekend. So you want to give it just a little preview as to what you guys spoke about, what fans might want to listen to?
Yeah, it was great. Was able to really kind of dig into a lot of different things, and over the course of about 40 minutes, I ended up talking to him about his roots, the story about why he stayed on Brett Bielema's staff after Nick Saban called him up and tried to poach him immediately the first time that Sam Pittman was at Arkansas, and kind of the story of what led to him staying for a little bit there. And just kind of, he gave a little bit of a look into what went into his hiring process at Arkansas, and talked a lot about that and how, he had interest after the SEC championship. So we dug into a lot of things and talked about specific players as well, the Feleipe notes and how he thought he was going to Kansas and all that stuff. And, it was really good to be able to talk with Sam Pittman, someone who I think everybody in this league is really going to like and appreciate, maybe not like playing against, but as a personality, he's fantastic. So that's going to be out on Saturday Down South. The Saturday Down South podcast is coming out, I think, Wednesday night. And let's just say Sam Pittman may or may not have, but definitely did dunk on my yes sir imitation in a very emphatic way.
Well, kudos for you for even trying. So, and good for getting him on. That's great. I'm definitely excited to listen to. You said Wednesday night, right? That's when it'll come out.
Wednesday night, and it'll be it'll be Wednesday night, and it'll be one of the more fun conversations that I've been able to have doing this job. I think people will get a kick out of it.
Okay, Connor, sounds great. Well, thanks for the preview, and as always, thanks for your time. Appreciate you, man.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. That's Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. Make sure you download their latest podcast Wednesday, so you can hear this stuff with Sam Pittman. And also, make sure to download all the podcasts on the Hit That Line Podcast Network. If you're looking for online content from the Morning Rush, from Ruskin and Zach, the Hog Talk, Trusting the Process, Primetime Preps, and yes, Halftime too. Just search Hit That Line wherever you listen to your podcasts. Made possible by Breeden RV Center, family owned and operated, a no-pressure, laid-back atmosphere, and Breeden RV, always home of free maintenance for life. 877-377-6963 as we wrap the first hour up on halftime. And if you're wondering, Mississippi State leads Texas Tech 1-0, and they're on the top of the third at Globe Life Field. We will be right back.